Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Joe Schwei, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Dakotas chapter of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And welcome to our fourth installment and final installment of 2021 of CF EDU, which we've gotten several people that have joined us live over the year, and we're recording these so people can use them as resources later on. And speaking of resources, that's what we're going to be talking about today, the available resources to our community that the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation has. And we've got a pretty amazing panel, and I'm going to introduce them a little bit later. But Aaron Stocks, who is a Compass Operations Manager, is going to talk about Compass, which is a free service that people with CF and their families can learn about today, but also take advantage of. It's pretty amazing. And there was a recent certification that I saw, Aaron, that you can talk about, that one of the more unique call center type platforms we have in the nonprofit world. And then we also have Sarina Sandstrom, and Sarina kind of does it all. You know, she's an advocate, she's an artist, she's an entrepreneur. She wrote a book, and that all happens before noon every morning. So, but she's hosted one of our virtual events that had a nationwide broadcast called BreatheCon, and she's going to talk a little bit about that. But I'm going to start off and talk a little bit about the chapter. And so we are the Minnesota Dakotas chapter. We have an office in downtown Minneapolis, and we have a remote office out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But we cover all of Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, and we serve the community. There are 7 of us in the office, and we do a little bit of everything. Probably first and foremost is we fundraise. You know, fundraising is the key to raising the money that buys the science that adds tomorrows for people with CF, and that's really job one. And we do that through a variety of ways. Prominently, we do a lot of special events, and a lot of you have probably seen our Great Strides walks. We do 8 of those across Minnesota and the Dakotas. We have a really big gala at the end of the year that we just did a virtual event about a week ago, raised a lot of money that way. We have a platform called Twin Cities Finest, where we honor 25 young professionals within the Twin Cities community, and they raise money. All told, in a non-pandemic year, we raised somewhere between $3 and $4 million just from this chapter. So really, really vital part of what we do. But it's not just fundraising. We do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of this community. Legislatively, there are things that get put in front of Congress every year, and we fiercely advocate for people with CF and their families. We are not partisan. But when it comes to people with CF and what's important to them, we are very partisan and very biased. So if it's in the interest of our CF community, we're all for it from a legislative standpoint. So we do a lot of that as well. But the other thing we do is we also connect. And for a lot of people, whether you're a new diagnosis or somebody who's been in the community for a long time, we really like to act as the face of the foundation for families out there. We want people to know that we're riding shotgun right along with them in their CF journey, and we answer any questions that they might have about cystic fibrosis, the care centers, our programs. And I can guarantee you that if we don't have the answer, we will find it for you, because there's a lot of things that the foundation does that go beyond the chapter level. And we're going to talk about that in a second here. But real easy, the role of the foundation. Think of the 3 C's, and our president, Dr. Boyle, loves to talk about cure, care, and community. Cure is fairly straightforward. When this foundation started in 1955, it took a very bold stance and said, we are going to set out to cure cystic fibrosis, and we're still doing that today. In fact, most disease advocacy organizations, they don't use the word cure. We do. And as you probably witnessed, it's a very bold organization. And the areas of focus in terms of the cure are delivering that cure that can find the underlying issue with everybody that has CF, not just people that have a certain mutation, but all people. but also we're trying to find better and improved therapies that can handle all the manifestations of CF. There is the disease itself, but then there is the inflammation that comes with it. And there are the bacteria that comes with it, and the infections. And we need newer and better ways to treat that, because as a lot of you know, especially with like antibiotics, they grow resistant. And so we're setting out to make sure that we are funding the development of therapies that can lead to the next generation of anti-infectives, anti-inflammatories, mucus clearance drugs, and that. So that's the cure side of the equation. The care side is just kind of what you would think. It's the care. We financially support about 110 care centers across the United States. We're very fortunate in our chapter to have what I think are some of the best in Children's Minnesota, University of Minnesota, Mayo Clinic, and then we've got Sanford out in South Dakota and parts of North Dakota, and then St. Alexius out in North Dakota. So just tremendous facilities. And Aaron and Sarina are going to talk a little bit about their care center experiences as well. So the other thing that our focus on care has been a challenge for us, but also in a very good way, is that people with CF are living longer and longer and longer. And they are doing things that people with CF a generation ago never did. So we are running studies and have cutting edge data on what could be the potential problems of people as they age with CF. And people with CF are having families, they're having long careers. These are things they didn't think about 50 years ago. And so we want to make sure that we stay very responsive to this population that, thank God, is getting older and older and older. And pretty soon we'll be talking, you know, how do we treat for people with CF in their senior years and beyond. So that's really exciting. But today, of the 3 C's, what we're going to talk most about is that third C, and that's community. We know that CF is an isolating disease. And for a lot of us that work in a lot of the rural communities, northern Minnesota and the Dakotas, we may know one person in that entire county that has cystic fibrosis. And if you can imagine, you can't, you know, celebrate, commiserate with a community because you're kind of on your own. So what we try to do is make that isolating feeling a little less isolating and bring people together. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And one of the ones I want to talk about today, and we're so happy to have Sarina Sandstrom on the call. Our foundation runs several virtual events beyond what you're seeing at the chapter level. They're national events. And Sarina had the privilege, and we were so happy for her in the chapter that she was able to co-chair BreatheCon this year. And Sarina, if you could talk a little bit about BreatheCon and kind of your role and what you took away from it. But prior to that, maybe you want to kind of reintroduce yourself beyond the kind of the short bio I gave you early. But this is Sarina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarina Sandstrom. I am a 27-year-old with cystic fibrosis. I live in St. Paul, but I'm originally from a rural area outside of St. Cloud. And I'm a school counselor by day, so I'm a mental health professional in general. But I also dabbled in quite a few different creative and entrepreneurial endeavors, as Joe mentioned. But yes, I had the privilege this year to co-chair BreatheCon, and BreatheCon is one of many community conferences that the National Foundation puts on each year. They kind of have a different one every season of the year, and BreatheCon usually happens in the fall. So this past September, I was able to chair that event. BreatheCon is coming together of any adult with CF who wants to be involved in the entire nation. So there's a group of folks that volunteer and work together to build the event and really tune into what the community is looking to learn about and connect about that year. So it's a lot of work and a lot of thought put into what is included each year. So I felt so lucky to be able to be a part of deciding those things and putting together an engaging event. And we had a very successful event, even in a pandemic year when people are very tired of having online meetings. It was a very successful event, and just a great opportunity to not only learn some new things and connect about specific CF concerns, but also just build each other up and really connect about this shared experience that we have, and how that can look very similar or very different, and have a way to make friends in this disease where you can't do that in a normal way. So yeah, BreatheCon is such an exciting event, and I really had a good time being involved with it. And then they also have other events throughout the year. For example, there's a family con where family members are invited and able to attend and discuss things from their perspective and feel involved in the foundation that way. And then each year they have a research con as well, which focuses kind of on what Joe was just talking about, all of the cure side of things and the different treatments and interesting research that's going on in the foundation. So lots of great ways to get involved in those community conferences, and I'm happy to talk more about them as we go.
Yeah, and sometimes these things are kind of tricky to find, with all the different opportunities that people can have. What I would tell everybody out there that's watching this on the recording, call our office. Again, we will connect you to the right person. We'll connect you to the right event. That's what we're here to do. We view what we do in the chapter as customer service. And so a great place always to start as a default, call the chapter office, email myself, email our office email. However, just get a hold of us and we'll connect you, because there are lots of ways to interface like Sarina just mentioned. And they do an amazing job. The technology they use is way beyond what we're doing today with Zoom. So it'll be a different experience for you. Sarina, I want to keep it on you for a second, because right before the call, you also mentioned that you are a member of Community Voice as well. And this can be accessed by really anybody in the community, correct?
Yeah, there's just a page called Community Voice on the national website, and you can join anytime. Community Voice is a really cool way to be able to share your opinions and share things you have questions about and things you've learned about with the rest of the community. So it's not only that, but also a great way to hear about different things going on. That was one of our main forms of sharing that BreatheCon was happening and doing some promotion around that event. So yeah, great resource if you want to kind of get in touch with what's available at the foundation. It's a good place to start and a great way to be engaged.
Right. And there's also a service called CF Peer Connect, which I believe you've also been a part of. So I don't know where you have time in the day to do everything that you do, but thank you for doing it, because as somebody with CF, you probably have a really valued perspective for somebody who, maybe it's a recent diagnosis and the mother and father is trying to process. Talk a little bit about CF Peer Connect.
Absolutely. I loved the times that I was involved with CF Peer Connect and continue to be involved with it. It's a great opportunity. They connect mentors and mentees. So I was able to be a mentor for, specifically, I worked with other people with CF who were either transitioning from a children's hospital to an adult care center, or transitioning into college or out of college, as those are some really big transitions that folks with CF experience and try to navigate. So since I had experiences with both of those things, it was a great time to be able to connect with others who are going through that. And it's very casual. You get to, meet with your mentor-mentee connection. I think it's a few times formally, and then you can continue the friendship afterwards if you'd like. So I loved it, and I still talk to my mentees to this day. So it was a great resource, especially if you have personal questions and things like that.
Yeah, and working in the foundation, we know intimately many families and their stories, and a lot of times, we'll get a specific case where maybe it was a later diagnosis and somebody's really struggling after being 15 years as a non-patient to all of a sudden being somebody that has CF. And we know other stories that are similar to that one, and we can connect at this level and put people in contact. So again, as a default, always reach out to your chapter office, because we know of these programs and we can plug you in the right place. In addition to Community Voice and the national events that we do and CF Peer Connect, I want to talk about a couple things that we do at the chapter level. Again, beyond fundraising, beyond advocacy. This year, we just started a Grampians program. And what's a Grampian? Well, it is someone who's a grandparent. They might have a grandchild with CF, they might not, but someone who's of that age that would love to get more engaged with the foundation. And it's not ideal to start it during a pandemic, but we've got about 30 grampians signed up. And, you know, grandparents, a lot of times they have more bandwidth because they might be retired to help out. And a lot of times, especially with a new diagnosis, grandma and grandpa don't exactly know what role they're going to play with their kids that just had a baby with CF. And they can connect with other grandparents in this really kind of cool format. Once we're out of the pandemic, we're going to be getting that group together, but that's an exciting group. We also have an amazing young professionals group called Tomorrow's Leaders. And these are people that they're going places. And one of the things that sets them apart from other young professionals is they have a philanthropic mindset and they want to give back and they want to help. And I believe the last count, we had over 79 young professionals in our Tomorrow's Leaders program. So if anybody's watching this and they want to network and they want to meet some like-minded individuals that are really helping us push our mission forward, Tomorrow's Leaders is a great place to start. In addition, we do this kind of educational stuff. CFF EDU, we just started this year. When we come out of the pandemic, we do CF Cares events where we bring anybody who takes care of anybody with CF, whether you work in a care center or you've got a child with CF, we get them together and people just talk. There's no agenda, but again, it's all about connecting. And we want to create as many different avenues and platforms that people in our community can connect on, because we've all felt isolated before. And that is something that in terms of everyone's mental health, physical health, we seek to remedy. And that's why we've got all these avenues to get folks together. I want to change direction a little bit, because this is a service that Compass, again, I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's a free service to families that have questions on insurance. They have questions on potentially, you know, where can I, you know, I'm having some financial issues. Is there some place I can go, or there's some resources? We started Compass about 6-7 years ago, I want to say. And it's one of the shining lights in our foundation. And we're fortunate to have one of the managers and really a content expert on Compass on the call today. Aaron Stocks, can you talk a little bit about Compass kind of from a broad standpoint, and then maybe some ways, some specific ways that people in our community have interacted with Compass and benefited from Compass?
For sure. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. So I'm Aaron. I'm one of the operations managers for the Compass program, and chat about a little bit about the high level things that we do. Joe mentioned it, insurance. That seems to be kind of like our bread and butter. I always like to tell a personal story. Before I had started with Compass, I've been with the foundation 14 years now, and I was so excited when I first got my own insurance, and I went to my clinic visit at Hopkins, and 3 months later I received a bill for $750, and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't right. I have insurance, something's not going according to plan. And so this goes on for months, and it took me that long to understand what a deductible was. So there was nothing wrong with the bill, it was really just understanding insurance. And that's when I knew what kind of an impact our case management team can really do in helping people compare insurance plans, whether it be through the healthcare marketplace, through your job, a Medicaid plan, Medicare. And then kind of like my story that I just mentioned, that insurance doesn't always cooperate the way that we want it to, whether there's a change in the middle of the year or whether it's something that was just kind of overlooked before you enrolled in the plan. And so us being people with CF, right, we know that insurance is one of the most critical decisions that we can make for an upcoming year. Joe talked a lot about the science. It's incredible. We have these modulators. We have to go to our care teams. But it's a really big struggle if we can't get access to all of those things because of healthcare in this country, or the health insurance in this country. So insurance is really like our bread and butter. We help people compare plans, even just understanding your plans, talking about families with new diagnosis, right? Cystic fibrosis itself is super complicated, and there's a lot to learn. And oftentimes new parents, they've never really utilized health insurance. So there's a whole other huge learning curve that they have to go through, right? So that helping with insurance challenges, prior authorizations, helping understand appeal processes, but then also connecting to resources, right? We know that cystic fibrosis care is expensive, whether it be medications, clinic visits, some of the equipment that we need. So making sure that we're connecting people with all the right resources that can help provide guidance or even financial support, but not only just affording care, but sometimes we as people with CF and families, we have to choose between paying for care and some of the other just normal things that families have to go through. So there are resources out there that can help with utilities. There are food resources, programs to help with transportation. So essentially the sky's the limit. There are a couple of things that we can't necessarily do. We're not medical professionals, and that's why we rely so heavily on our care teams. So oftentimes, if you have a medical question, we might ask some folks internally, but the best thing is always to chat with your care team. And as much as we would all love to have law degrees, we don't. So we don't provide legal guidance either. That's why we work so closely with the CF Legal Information Hotline. I'm sure many people in the community are familiar with Beth Suffian and her team. She's an incredible advocate, doing this a very long time. So questions about disability benefits, Medicaid, Social Security, she's the expert there. And we always like to connect individuals and families for those questions. Or if you have questions about related to the workplace, related to CF and school, she's also going to be an expert there to provide guidance. But anything outside of that, we may connect you with some other legal resources that could be more specific to help answer some questions. So that is the elevator speech for Compass.
That's a tall building, that elevator. I mean, but it does so many things. And I think one of the really cool things about it is, and I haven't had to call it, I don't have CF, but it seems like you don't get bounced around a lot. Like you get a voice on the other end, and that person tends to kind of walk you through it the whole way. Is that right, Aaron?
Yeah, and so that's one thing that we like to keep in mind too, right? We want to be able to empower people, because how great is it to be able to eventually figure out this insurance stuff on your own, right? So we're really going to work with you on the journey whenever you call or reach out to us as much as the person wants. If they really just want some high level pointers and want to be able to make a decision on their own, that's fantastic. But if you are really confused and need a lot of help, we're going to be with you there throughout that entire journey as well. So it's based on everyone's preference, but regardless, we're gonna support however much hand-holding someone might want.
And unfortunately, I've seen that Compass has really stepped up with a lot of the natural disasters that seem to be almost a monthly occurrence with all the tornadoes, and somebody loses their medication, their house is destroyed, they don't have their vest. I mean, Compass has stepped in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up, Joe. It's never an easy time to chat with families or individuals that have to live in an area where there are hurricanes, the tornadoes that just hit Illinois and Tennessee and Kentucky. There have been several people that have reached out to us about making sure that they have gas to put in their generator. Or families who have lost medications, or if they had to vacate their home and left their medication accidentally. So we'll help people replace medication, whether it be physically finding a pharmacy that has it on hand, or if it's damaged or because of whatever the weather is, we can chat with the insurance to kind of explain to them what the situation is, get an override, get an early refill. Absolutely, those are things that we want to be there to help, just because it's devastating as it is to have to live through a natural disaster and then add these things on top. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, an amazing service. It's free. And the phone number is 844-COMPASS, COMPASS. That's all you got to remember. And we were very fortunate pre-pandemic we hosted 3 Compass caseworkers in our office, and just very caring individuals who are deep into the mission. And if you're listening, please take advantage of this service. And again, 844-COMPASS. And we're really just fortunate as a community to have Aaron and that team supporting us. Got a question here in the chat about how does this chapter staff work to support the community? And I talked a little bit about some of our program elements, but one of the ways I think that we offer some support is not only do our fundraising events raise the important money that we need to buy the science that's going to add tomorrow's, but what I've heard from people is the minute that they started getting involved in fundraising for a walk or coming to our gala, it was their way of maybe taking some of the power back from the disease. It's like, hey, you know what? We're not helpless here. We're not vulnerable. We can impact not just the life of my loved one, but of all lives by taking some of it back and getting involved. And as I mentioned, we do, I think in 2022, we're set up for 12 fundraising events. And pandemic willing, you know, you always got to add that piece. And, you know, it raises money, that's key, but it also gets people involved. And that's another great way to meet people. You know, the majority of our events we do outside. And so from an infection standpoint, you know, we've been keeping our distance for a while now, but those outdoor events are great for communities to come together like Great Strides. Our walk program hits up in May. And if you know, if you've been involved with the foundation, I'm sure you get our emails, but starting in May, we do 8 walks across 3 states. And oh, Drew's pulling up our webpage here. And by the way, CFF.org is amazing. We just reformatted and it's very user friendly. What Drew's showing on the page here are all of the walks that we have for 2022. And you can see we're in some great markets like Minneapolis and St. Cloud. We go out to Fargo. We're over in St. Paul, Minnesota. And we go out, we've got 2 walks out in South Dakota, in Sioux Falls and in Rapid City, which is, what is it, 11 hours from Minneapolis? So that's a fun drive. But great way to get involved. The great thing about Great Strides is there's no fee to enter. You just come out and you walk, and if you want to ask people to help and contribute and walk with you, what a great way to celebrate with your community. And there's a lot to celebrate. Strides has been going on for, I want to say, close to 30 years, and it's still our biggest fundraiser, you know, inside the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. 40+ million every year through Great Strides, and so great way to get involved. And you know, you brought up CFF.org there, Drew, and I really urge people to spend some time navigating through it, because almost everything you need to have answered, you're either going to find an answer or you're going to find a link. Again, like right there, just diagnosed. It walks people through the various stages that they're at with CF. And if you're an adult who was just diagnosed or a child, it's going to send you down a path of getting knowledgeable. And trust me, it sure beats going on Google and Googling cystic fibrosis. This is the resource to start at. And again, very user friendly. We spend a lot of time on this to make sure everyone's getting current and very accurate data, not some of the speculation that happens out on the internet. One of the things that we also, okay, so there's your Compass link, and you can learn everything there on Compass. We've got a clinical trial finder on the CFF.org. So if you want to get involved in clinical trials, of course, all the medical data is on there as well. Even if you don't know what your care center is, and you were looking for a care center, there's a care center finder on here. Also, what I think is very valuable is that community blog. So, and I believe, Sarina, you've probably written for that blog, I'm guessing. But as somebody with CF, Sarina, talk a little bit about what you've been able to read on the community blog, and have you been able to connect with other people because of that?
Yeah, the community blog's a great way to connect with people. I wrote several years ago for the community blog, and since then have used it as a resource myself. It's just a great way to learn and talk about things that are commonly asked. And then I see in the chat, just talking a little bit about how the foundation has supported me and given me helpful resources as someone with CF. I can't think of ways that the CF Foundation hasn't supported me in that. So I think there's a lot to be said, but specifically I'm thinking earlier in my adulthood, I moved to Oregon and then moved back. And at that time when I moved back, I felt the pull to get involved in the foundation again. I had taken many years to just kind of take a step back and figure out what I wanted in my life, and then decided that being a part of the foundation again was really important to me. And so the first step I took in that was reaching out to the Minnesota Dakotas chapter. And I went in, you know, pre-pandemic for a live meeting with everyone and got to meet people at the office. And everyone just was so helpful and helped connect some of my interests with ways that I could get involved. So connecting with Ashley, who's in charge of the Singspire program, and I did that for a couple of years. And yeah, and then through that, my participation just organically shifted and changed and led me to being a part of the BreatheCon event this last year. So it's a nice way to just get your foot in the door, get to know real people and ask real questions. And I think that's sometimes nice in a disease where we really largely only get to connect virtually with each other. So having real people to talk to is super great. And that'd be my suggestion on how to get connected with resources and events and things like that. Community truly is so healing and so helpful. And there's so many great ways to get involved with the community.
You know, from a overall, let's just say a organizational, like a business standpoint, the more people with CF that we can get involved in the decision-making and the planning, the better we're going to be, because nobody knows these things better than somebody like Sarina or somebody like Erin. And I want to say with that community voice, I know they have people get involved that on one hand, they might decide, okay, what are the t-shirts that Great Strides going to look like this year? And on the other side, hey, what are the research topics that we should be really focusing on? I think it was through community voice that the foundation heard loud and clear, you need to spend more time on things that manifest with CF, infections particularly. And what happened there is it led to a $110 million investment in coming up with the next generation of anti-infectives that we're currently in. That was feedback from the community that drove some of the processes and strategies for the foundation. I think around mental health, I think there was a time 8-9 years ago when I started that we may have been missing the boat on mental health, where the care centers were focused primarily on, you know, physical health and the symptoms they were showing. It was through community voice that we got the feedback, hey, you've got to be focusing on this side of it too. And since then, we have helped support in all the care centers across the country funding to put a mental health worker in each care center. And I don't know, Erin and Sarina, I mean, have you had, can you talk a little bit about mental health and the role that that helps you as someone navigating this disease?
Sarina, you want me to go, or you want to get? Yeah, you know, Joe, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because again, through some of the surveys and some of the other committees, like it finally came to surface. It's something that's always been there, but really never really been talked about, that mental health is such a huge part of just overall wellness for people with CF, especially talking about, Sarina, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but like the isolation that we go through, right? And it's so hard for us to connect with other people, you know, that we feel like understand either what we're going through or what we're feeling or what we're thinking. So, you know, I can't say how excited I am that this has finally come to surface, and we're spending more time on that and several other initiatives that are happening at the foundation, including like DEI, the division or equity and inclusion. That's something that I'm really excited has come to surface. Food security. So there's several, you know, initiatives that are happening right now that it's a great way to give for us to give our opinion through community voice. I love the people at the foundation who we work with, but who better to ask than the experts, right? So people with CF, we know what it feels like and what it's like to go through the journey with CF. And it's really important that we're finally including some of those opinions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is it all right if I add to that?
Yeah, please do, please do.
I mean, as a mental health professional myself, I could talk about the importance of mental health all day, but I love to see that the foundation is really embracing that and has been for a while now, and that mental health has been a focus of a lot of community events and a lot of programming and educational opportunities that are available. Like Aaron said, mental health is an important part of overall well-being in general, and not only for patients with CF, but also for their families. There's a lot of research out there about how family members' mental health is affected by a CF diagnosis. So holistically thinking of the health of everyone involved in our community, mental health is at the center of that. And there are some awesome resources available to all of us now through the foundation and through our CF care centers. I think most care centers now have a social worker. And so mental health is being talked about so much more than it ever used to be. And I just think that's fantastic. And I would encourage anyone who's experiencing challenges with mental health, or maybe not even experiencing challenges, but just want to be proactive about mental health, to reach out to your social worker or to someone at the foundation to connect with resources.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's like a reciprocal relationship. Like, the community can really benefit from interfacing with the foundation, but almost more importantly, the foundation will get better and better at being responsive to the needs of people with CF. The more people with CF get involved. So we need your voice, we need your involvement. And when you come and volunteer or lend your hand to the foundation, you're taking agency in your disease and really pushing the path forward for the entire community. And two other ways, I'm on the fundraising side, more so than in the care center, but two really cool developments. And you talked about Singspire, Sarina. We actually fund every year 10 nonprofits, 10 organizations that address a specific issue that's important to them in CF. And I know with Singspire, which is a program that uses voice lessons to help, really get people to think about their breathing. Plus, it's really cool. They produce great music. That was started with, well, we have an impact grant. And this is something, too, that is available to people with CF and the community, where if they've got an idea that they think could benefit people with CF, the foundation has a panel that looks at these ideas, and every year they pick 10 to fund. And Singspire started out of an impact grant, which is phenomenal. So that's a real fun way to get involved. And the other thing, and maybe Drew, if you can pull this up on a website, we have something called Passion Fundraising. So I think I said before that, you walk, we have a gala, we have a young professionals program, we have a golf tournament we do out in Sioux Falls. We like to joke, like, we walk for a cure, we climb for a cure, we cycle for a cure, we drink beer for a cure. But if none of those exactly scratches your itch, we have something called Passion Fundraising, where you communicate to our team, this is what I want to do, this is how I think I can raise money. And we have had a great example. Was this past year, we had 2 CF parents that walked 500 miles through Spain and France, and it's the Camino de oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but they walked 500 miles in Southern Europe, and we kind of talked about their journey on Facebook. They sent us content, and we put it up there. They raised over $40,000 by taking a really long walk. He had just retired, the CF dad, and this is something that was kind of a bucket list. And they brought it to us and turned it into like a pretty amazing fundraiser. So when you work with the foundation, you really get a voice. And what I've seen is that if you want to fill out a survey, you can do that for us. But if you really want to get involved and help really create some of these fundraising events that are happening, or start your own nonprofit, or become a mentor, you have a lot of pull inside the foundation. And as I mentioned, and these, Sarina and Aaron both mentioned, really helps guide our path as an organization. Any other examples that you guys have kind of come across, and how you really can take agency by working with the foundation? Yeah, I mean, well, Aaron, you have a job here, so that's pretty cool. That's taking it to an extreme.
Yeah, very fortunate. I know it's something that the community, we had talked about for a very long time, and being able to help people on a one-on-one basis, right? And so I'm really glad that we're continuing to learn about more ways that we can help, and we always want to get better. So I'm glad that we have this service. As far as the passion fundraising, I've seen some pretty crazy ideas down here in Maryland. Crabs are obviously a huge thing here. So I've seen people do cornhole tournaments. I've seen people do crab feasts. So it really is, the name is fitting, right? If it's a passion of yours, you can make a fundraiser almost out of anything.
Yeah, so many ways to get involved. Camino de Santiago, thank you, Drew. That's the walk, and that walk's been happening for over 1,000 years, where people take stones to carry the burdens for other people, and it wound up again raising over $40,000 for the foundation. So that was amazing passion fundraising done. There's a question here about keeping up on CF Research and Development, COVID. I mean, again, CFF.org is a great place to go. And when it comes to like health and nutrition, I would probably say consult with your nutritionist at your care center first. But there's really great content on the site that talks about that as well. And what's interesting, and this is one of my favorite stats from the registry data that came out, and I'm sure, Aaron, you've heard this, but for the group and for Sarina, one of the things that is a little bit of a negative with Trikafta is that we're starting to see obesity rates in the CF population, which means that the Trikafta is doing its thing, but we're actually having to adjust some of the nutritional guidelines for people with CF, because these modulators are working so well in terms of retaining nutrients. And so this is something where the foundation is going to be consistently evolving as the needs of the population get older and older, and that feedback is shared with the care center. So eventually it becomes best practices at the care center level. But I would say, and you guys are the experts, I mean, probably your go-to in terms of like health and nutrition is probably your care team number one, correct?
Yeah, I mean, our care teams are backbones, right? So I've always kind of half jokingly said, like, I reach out to my care team for everything, not just CF. If I break my arm, anything else, I'm reaching out to them. They're the experts. So yeah, the dietitian is going to be the first person that I reach out to for questions about nutrition. And it's I don't want to say it's a good problem to have, but it's interesting. You had mentioned that more people are adults with CF, people are being diagnosed later. So every day we're learning about new things that we're going to have to tackle in the future. And it's a great thing that, we're going to have the opportunity to do. But I think it just goes to show that we still have a lot to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree that the dietitians we have at CF Care Centers are the experts. That's their job. They're there to help us understand our bodies and our nutrition and how that works. And especially in the age of Trikafta, how that's changing for many folks. So just a little resource that is pretty fresh. We heard that this is a big new topic in the community. And so we did do a panel about nutrition and body image at BreatheCon this past year. So that panel is recorded and on the YouTube channel for the National CF Foundation. So if anyone would like to look at that, it was put together by Nick Kelly, who is a person with CF, who is a certified nutritionist. So yeah, it was a great panel, and we had a lot of interest in that panel. So it's definitely a conversation that lots of people are wanting to have and learn more about.
And another area where we're going to need to be experts really quick is on families, starting families, because the stat that I saw, and this came out of the registry data, that 5 years ago, there were about 200 pregnancies that year in the CF community. 2020, there was over 600. So as the rest of the country, the birth rate's actually gone down, in the CF community, it's tripled. And so all of a sudden, we're encountering these amazing, wonderful things that we didn't have to think about 30 years ago. And the interesting thing, and I've talked about this with our team, is there's a lot of like physical reasons why that's happening, in terms of like, you know, these modulators are helping with, you know, less mucus and that kind of thing. But what it says to me, the fact that there were 600 pregnancies, is that people with CF are understanding that, hey, I'm going to be there for these benchmarks in our kids' lives. I'm going to be around for college and marriage and hopefully grandkids. And I just think that was one of the coolest things of that entire data, was that the sense of hope that people are going to live long, productive, happy lives is real. And we had over 600 CF babies in 2020. Pretty cool.
Yeah, on that note too, Joe, similarly, people returning to work too, right? Which on the surface sounds really exciting, but I bet it's also anxious for people. You know, where to get the job skills, where to search for a job, you know, putting together a resume. If it's been so long since you've been able to work, just from a health perspective, there's so many things to take into consideration, rather than, you know, hey, I'm just going to go back to work, because it's not that easy. And then what implications does that mean for your insurance? So there's, you know, that's the other thing that at least we're hearing and seeing at Compass. Yeah.
So what's interesting is there's this feedback loop where we hear from the community kind of, or the foundation kind of puts that as policy, and then we set the guidelines for the care centers. And then it's just kind of this circuitous thing that needs to keep happening. And really, it all starts with involvement, which is really, if I had to sum this up in one or more than one word, but I would say get involved. The best way is to contact your local chapter. We will put you in contact with the right person or the right program. CFF.org is amazing. Any final thoughts or any other questions that we've got a few people in the community that are on, and again, we've got a couple of experts here. We'd love to hear from you. But Sarina, Aaron, any other last kind of words that you guys would like to you know, put out there in terms of the resources that the foundation has and getting involved?
I just want to reiterate what Joe just said, how much getting involved can help in so many ways, not only with your physical health, but with your mental health, with that feeling of connection with the community. There's so many awesome ways to get involved and build those points of connection in your life. And on a personal note, that's helped me more than anything. The people in the CF Foundation and in the CF community in general are some of the most caring, inspiring, amazing people I've ever met. So I would really encourage you to find a way that feels like a good fit for you on how to connect and get involved.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. You know, there's, no matter what your interest is, there's going to be something, and you're always going to be able to add value, no matter what you're thinking, you're feeling. So definitely start with your chapter. Really leverage that website that Joe's been pitching. A ton of great information on our website. And there's all kinds of ways to get involved, whether you're interested in some of the fundraising efforts, whether you're interested in policy. Promise you, there's some way for you to get involved.
Great. Well, unless there's any other questions from the viewers, I'm reading here. Keep your eye out for a follow-up email that will include a recording of this. And there's going to be all the links that we talked about. And so check that out. But again, Aaron and Sarina, it's such a privilege to be on your team and be doing what we're doing in this mission. And thank you for your time. Aaron's in the middle of open enrollment, and he gave us an hour of his time, and he doesn't have an hour to give. So we really appreciate Aaron getting involved, and Sarina's got 9 irons in the fire too. So thank you for your time. And if there's nothing else, we're going to say goodbye, and we're going to have more installments of CFF EDU in 2022. So thank you for listening, and thank you to our panel, and have a great rest of the day.